and today we're very pleased to have some students here giving what I'm sure will be a very interesting presentation on service learning in Microenterprise in Ecuador. It's a global health institute at UW, and as you probably noticed in the back there, they have brought some jewelry produced by women in Ecuador. That the jewelry is for sale, and the prices are listed up there. I'm sure if you have any questions about the production or what they're made out of, they'd be happy to answer the questions. But feel free to take snacks and coffee and tea, and thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm Megan Hall, and we have Carybeth, Reddy here as well. And we are representing our group, which also included 3 other members, students who traveled to Ecuador this summer as part of our service learning project about microenterprise in Ecuador.
So our trip to La Calera, Ecuador was part of a service learning course through the Global Health Institute and the Mortgage Center. So as part of this course, we not only worked with the community in what we'll be talking about in a few minutes, but we also had guided reflection as part of the course, which is how service learning works.
So to give you a greater background about the community we worked with, which is called La Calera, I have 4 different pictures here to kind of give a scope of the community. They're a farming community in rural Andean Ecuador and rely on farming as sustenance, but also as a market. And you can see there's a very strong tradition of weaving and textiles in the community, which are also used to make their own clothes and to sell. And additionally, I have a 3rd picture of a traditional childbirth that we were able to witness. It wasn't an actual childbirth, it was a mock childbirth, but you get the idea of that there's a strong presence of traditional medicine in the community as well. And I also wanted to emphasize that although there's a strong traditional and indigenous influence in the community, there's a growing impact of urbanization outside of the community where families have to go to cities for work and are therefore left with issues such as childcare. So childcare is becoming an issue. The women also acknowledge that the outside influence from cities is posing problems such as single parents, alcoholism, the childcare need. And they also shared with us that they realized the need to solve these issues to improve the health of their community. And they saw projects such as ecotourism that keep families in the community will help solve this issue and will also bring like more market to the community because of the ecotourism.
All right, so this group of women, they call themselves Sumac Muyo, which in Quechua stands for good seed. And the group started about 24 years ago with Flora, who is this woman right here. She started this group because she saw that in the community, women were very timid and kind of looked to men to make all of their decisions. So she saw a need for a group that could kind of build the self-confidence of women in the community. So they got together and would share their problems and talk about solutions. And they initially started working in community health projects. And they had a lot of skepticism from the community, specifically the men, thinking that they were getting together just to gossip, and they were, spending time on, or they were losing time that they could have been spending on their primary economic activities. But these are really strong women, and they kept carrying on with this group. And through time, the men started seeing that they, were doing something good. They were having an impact on the community. With the jewelry line they started, they're bringing in economic profits. And so they started gaining respect of the men. And kind of the view of women over time has changed quite a bit in this community because of these women. And so today it's a group of about 15 women who they all, work in different parts of the community. Some of them in the daycare that Megan mentioned. Some of them working on this jewelry line. But they all kind of get together. Their primary goals are not to make a ton of money, although that's an added bonus of this jewelry line that they're working on. But it's really an important time for them to share together as women. And And that's what they all said were their goals of this project, was just to be together and to share together and to give back to their community.
So a little more specifically about how our project started with Sumac Muyo Women's Group. We must acknowledge that it was possible through a long-standing relationship with Lori Dupree Brown and UW alumnus Dr. Frank Hutchins through the Global Health Institute. And the women of Sumac Muyo actually approached Lori, who had worked with the community for other health projects. And they approached her about developing their jewelry making interest into a microenterprise as a means to actually earn money rather than just a hobby. Unfortunately, Carybeth was actually in Ecuador last year when the women approached Lori, and Carybeth was able to visit La Calera to assess whether starting a project with this microenterprise idea was something that would really be effective. And Carybeth was able, through interviews and surveys and just interacting with the women, she was able to determine that the women really were dedicated and determined to make this microenterprise a reality. So from there, Lori collaborated with Janet Newald, who is another one of our adult advisors. And Janet is an expert in Latin American artisan and crafts and sales. So together they brought very valuable leadership for us. And from there, different UW students, there were 5 of us, applied to be part of this program. And we all came from different backgrounds, nutrition and economics, but we all have a common passion for global health and community development. And that's how our specific involvement in the project took off.
So while we were in La Calera, we actually were only there for about 3 days, but we got a lot done. And a lot of that was because of planning ahead of time. Each one of the students had a project that they worked on. We had a student working on cost analysis to see if the price they were charging for their jewelry was sufficient, to see if they were covering the cost of the materials they were using and the time they were spending to create each piece. We had another student working on tracking inventory and sales through kind of a log, because before that, it was just scribbled on little pieces of paper that got lost. We had another student working on refining their line of jewelry, kind of showing them because their target was the international market, so showing them what was popular here, both styles and colors and lengths, all of those kinds of things. And then a student working on kind of collecting their story, their history, and the story not only of the group but of each woman, or each of the individual women, so we could use that as marketing back here in the United States. So while we were there for the 3 days, we spent a lot of time with the women working on the jewelry. They would make necklaces, and then we would discuss what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it, and how we could kind of refine it to make it a product that could sell easier. And in addition to helping the women with their line of jewelry, they taught us all about their community medicine, kind of natural herbs that they used from their gardens, as well as the traditional birthing practices. So it was kind of a mutual teaching and learning process that we went through.
One quick thing I'd like to point out about this picture is we have Aaliyah, Monica, and Flora. So 3 generations of the women who are girls that are all participating in jewelry making in their own capacity. So it's kind of a fun idea that it's being carried down through their families. So our future goals. Of course, we'd like to maintain the relationship that we've developed with women of Sumac Muyo, and with the idea of refocusing our direct involvement with sales, so that Sumac Muyo works more directly with their clientele, more independently with their clientele, but still has resources from our involvement through the UW. And also there are ideas of continuing our involvement with the community of La Calera to develop financial goals with the money that they're now earning from these sales to go towards the women's ideas of developing ecotourism in their community, to solve some of the previous issues that they had identified, such as alcoholism and domestic violence. And also, another goal, as you can get an idea from the jewelry sales we have in the back, is to develop the Wisconsin Without Borders Marketplace, which we're developing that right now, but the concept is bringing together students from UW who have done international work in all areas and bringing back products that they have worked with their community partners and then selling them here in Madison to not only acknowledge the achievements of the students, but the community partners that they also work with. And this is a really beautiful picture of the products that were produced while we were there.
So as Megan said, we're working on jewelry sales in Madison. These are 3 that we have coming up if you're interested in be great Christmas presents. So yeah, we've had a few sales already and they've been very successful, and we've been sending pictures back to the women, and they're really excited about what we've been doing. And we just placed an order with them last week, and within 2 or 3 days they had it in the mail sent to us. They have an inventory, so they're really excited about the work that we've done, and I think they feel a lot of ownership over what they've done, and they're looking to move forward. And we've heard that they also have some other clients that they're working with, one in Chile, I believe. So they're starting to expand, and it's pretty exciting.
And lastly, we just have our acknowledgments for all the people and institutions that were involved to make our work possible. I won't read through them all, but can get an idea of how this is a very collaborative project, and we're representing the achievements of a lot of different parties. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask us or take a look at the jewelry afterwards as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was wondering, so what percentage of the funds collected from sales are going back to the community?
That's a good question. So this kind of gets into the idea of the Wisconsin Without Borders Marketplace, where we purchase the jewelry from Sumac Muyo at a fair price. So it's actually at a price that is about twice as much as what the average hourly income is in their community. And we're developing ideas now of what to do with those profits. Currently, a lot of the profits are going to just building our project here and purchasing supplies and marketing materials. So there isn't a lot of gross income right now. But
one of the ideas, though, with the profits, with this Wisconsin Without Borders Marketplace, if we bring together multiple projects with the profits of all of us, we can put that money back into developing additional microenterprise sites around the world. So that's one of our ideas. We're hoping to actually start a student organization that kind of runs this marketplace. So if there's any interest in that, you can talk to us. But yeah, so we're hoping that these profits, they'll go back into the community to develop additional sites. So not necessarily back into La Calera's community once they, are a sustainable microenterprise.
Well, Shay was informing, I think you mentioned that you guys actually provided them with beads.
They had some beads, and then we brought as sort of a hostess gift some bags of beads so that they could get started and we just started trying together.
Okay.
So there was some input on our part.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was going to say is, so they have now been paid when we buy the products from them. They've been paid, what has been established mutually at a fair price, including their labor and the cost of fees. And so now we have this opportunity to make some additional money from this. And with that money, we're, after we cover the cost of buying, someone's fronting the money right now to buy place another order, then we'll have a capacity to create opportunities for other projects, or to, we haven't quite established what all the opportunities might be, and that would be one of the objectives of having these partnerships. Megan's probably what she's saying, the price of beef and the time, how long it took stuff, so we could make stuff, so we could figure out if it really was worth it, and that's how she has this metric of, why not twice, it's the daily wage, and so it was, they think it's a good job on these terms. And having steady business is so great. I'm really thrilled that, apparently, we encourage them to meet weekly and make stuff according to the thing, rather than like trying to cram for an order. So I guess when they had to fill this order, they had everything they needed, they didn't have to use up anything, so they felt like, we can fill our order, and it creates regular.
Are you selling this online anymore?
As of now, no. That is something that we had kind of discussed, but for now, we've just been doing sales around Madison.
Can I just, sorry. So the micro, so I know there's a student really this microfinance.
Yeah.
But yours is different in like microenterprise, because you're not actually doing startup loans.
Right.
Okay.
And the idea, we actually discussed microenterprise with that, or microfinance with the women, and they were a little standoffish, a little hesitant about the idea, just because they want to keep the funds and the money within their own group and their own community. And so the idea of outside funding was, I think, a little intimidating, or they're just hesitant to go with that idea. So. Molly?
Did they discuss starting their own microfinance, like with the money that they got from
Yeah.
Enterprise, right?
Yeah, they had, and one of the big things is they want to give back to the children in their community, so they had talked about small loans or scholarships for children in the community for education.
I was wondering how many students in your group spoke Spanish, and if it was possible to communicate in Spanish, or if you had an interpreter, or how did that work?
We all spoke Spanish, as well as our faculty mentors, so we didn't need a translator while we were there, which really helped our work. I don't think what we did would have been possible if we didn't all speak Spanish.
Was that a requirement for being in the group?
Yeah.
Did they speak Spanish to each other, or did
They spoke both.
Yeah, kind of a mix.
Yeah. Sometimes when I think they had the comments between themselves, they would just go back and forth, which was whatever was more comfortable for them.
Can I say something?
Yep.
One of the times I heard them really mad at me, slowly, we were really trying to instill in them how necessary quality control was, and everything that they made. And somebody next to me was working really diligently on making a message, and she got, halfway through the thing, and I noticed there was one of the dudes that was kind of a little off kilter, and sorry, we're gonna have to take that off, because I'm not gonna, is that rule really so that, I need to figure out that.
And I think that also really emphasizes the idea of mutual exchange that we focus on in service learning and with the Wisconsin Without Borders concept. So we're not only providing resources for the women, but we're learning from them. So a very mutual relationship. I also just wanted to clarify that Lori Dupree Brown is here and Janet Newald are two advisors that we keep talking about, and they keep talking, but yeah.
I just want to say thank you for your talk, first of all. It was really interesting, and it's particularly interesting to me because I'm working doing research in a community in Ecuador. And my research is unrelated to microenterprise, but there's several groups of women and individuals who approach me about getting help putting their products on the local, in the local marketplace. They knit and do embroidery. But it's several different groups that have approached me, and so it's a little bit different from your community in the sense that there isn't sort of this one group that's well organized and has established relationships with other folks. And so I'm wondering if we could talk a little bit about the structure of this group and how members are brought into the group and how leadership functions in that group as far as establishing relationships outside the group as well.
Yeah, they have a president of the organization as well as I believe a few other people who are in leadership positions that kind of guide the group. But they're very collaborative, and they all there's not a clear hierarchy really of the women. And as far as bringing people into the group, I don't know if they have an exact system. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's just a very tight-knit community, so I think, a lot of, their children come into the group it's like a natural, so they're very well self-organized, but I don't know how much of an exact system they have.
Yeah, I can provide a little more background. They also run the daycare together. They've done a lot of big sales at a bunch of projects where I can tell some horror stories about who's trying to do that. But they did a daycare together that really worked. And their idea of the daycare was to meet the needs of poorer families that had to go out to work all day and need a daycare position. So then they got funding and they got jobs for people. And the few who were leaders who did that, and they came to the Microenterprise, they're kind of like, now we're tired, what about us? We'd like to do something where we can earn some money and have a voice. And so they're kind of neighbors mostly, but they do have the structure, and I think the egalitarian aspect of it. Their indigenous culture has that too. Some of them have been leaders in their indigenous community group as well. One of them has been a leader in relation to issues like domestic violence. She worked with UNICEF, and they did a lot in this community. They even did video in the community with their men acting roles to show, before and after and what it should be like. Another one is a midwife who's been an advocate for midwifery in Ecuador, which you probably know, the Western medicine is traditional. So it's just kind of amazing that we're in this kind of community which is really accomplished, village women. And so there's about 4 different profiles, and they are the core of the group. And I think, honestly, I think Flora, when she has this work, there's a core of them who do it, but there's a whole bunch of others who could be participating that need to get their act together and come away from that and really need their opportunity. So Flora's trying to figure out how to get more people involved who might really do that. So, but in terms of reaching out to the group, I would say that we have all these really capable students, and if you can call us out, and we can maybe do a site visit, and as simple as bringing a bag of stuff home and selling it, knowing we have a marketplace, you can at least buy 20 or 40 items, and also an idea